Just like my classes, I do that every time. I start the class and then remember to record. We have Shun Lai here to tell us about how to pitch and how to query for professional writers. So, Shun.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm so pleased to see you here. Today's session is going to go pretty quickly. We have a lot of things to cover, but I also have a really, really terrible tendency to speak really quickly. So if any of this goes by too quickly, please flag me, let me know, and John will shout at me and say, hey, you, slow down. So today's session, I understand we have some people here who may be ready to query and some people here who may not be ready to query. Either way, we're going to be as broad as possible about this, and I will give you as much information as I possibly can. There are plenty of opportunities for you all to ask questions, and there also might be some breakout rooms here depending on how we all feel. So yeah, let's get started, okay? Okay, so today's session is about query letters. The query letter is the step between your desk, i.e., your manuscript living on your desk, and the actual publishing of any particular book. That, of course, is just for traditional publishing, right? If you're self-publishing, then you obviously don't need a query letter. You can go straight to Amazon or to Ingram Spark, and you can upload your book to the great wide world and have it out there within a matter of hours, okay? Query letters are for people who are pursuing traditional publishing. And today we'll be covering query letters for nonfiction as well as fiction projects. Most of my expertise is in fiction projects, although I have both a novel out and a nonfiction work out. I query a lot of nonfiction. The other places that you will use query letters is if you are trying to pitch a publication for a magazine article or even for an essay. Sometimes you might use a query letter for groups like Submittable. Submittable.com is a clearinghouse of places to send your short stories or your essays or your poetry. And most of the places will ask for a cover letter, right? And in some cases, you can use your query letter in substitution for that, okay? All right, so let's get started here. Well, let me ask if there are any questions first and foremost. Like, are we all clear on the role that query letters play in the publishing world? Yeah? Okay, terrific. Any outstanding questions or people who didn't get to nod or wave quickly enough, just dump them in the chat box and I'll get to them later on, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start screen share here. And again, I won't be able to see you all once I start this, so folks, just be sure to flag John and he will shout out to me that we need to do something about some questions, all right? Okay, let's see here. All right, so we're gonna start here. Ooh, boop, boop. Where is it? Presenter view, normal, hold on. Sorry, friends. This is one of those things where Microsoft Word updates and you suddenly have no idea what you're doing. Okay. All right, so move this over here. So here's query letters. Query letters are by far and large the first step that you have of standing out among the many people who want to publish their book, okay? And you do it by writing a query letter that is powerful and that is compelling. And in this session, we'll tell you how to do that, okay? So we'll start by some definitions. Getting out of the slush is what you want to do. The slush pile is essentially what we call the open queue, the freelance query pile, or anybody's inbox, right? So if you're an editor or you're an agent, you are likely to have a slush pile, and that slush pile comprises all of the unsolicited manuscripts that you will receive over any given period of any workday, okay? So in other words, if any of the authors here wanted to put their hat into the ring, throw their manuscript into the pile, hoping to get representation from an agent, then their query would likely go into the slush pile. The other alternative to this is what's called a solicited query or a solicited manuscript. And that's the case in which you meet somebody or at a conference, say, or in which you know somebody. So say John has an agent that he's working with and he thinks your work would be really good for this particular agent, then he might say, write to my agent and drop my name, okay? Then that puts you in, it's still in the slush pile, but it puts you in another category, okay? So personal connections can still be pretty important in this particular industry, okay? And actually that's the case in any industry, right? And personal connections are important everywhere, right? So there are several components to a query letter. Hold on, I'm just gonna move us here so I can see, okay. So there are a couple components to a query letter. And in general, this is what we call template, right? I mean, you can kind of follow a bit of a formula to the query letter, right? Although I'm staying away here from offering you a hard and fast template, because I don't want you to feel like your creativity should be hampered, okay? There is a certain amount of the query's attraction being that there's something of your work's voice in the query. So that's why we're not giving you a hard and fast, template, like plug in the words here or plug in the name of your book here and you should be fine, okay? And of course, as you'll see later on, there are successful query letters that won't even follow this particular loose structure that I'm about to show you. Regardless of any of this, every query letter needs to have the following components. Okay, so the first component is the greeting and personalization, okay? And what you want to do here is make sure that there is some personalization going on, all right? And the reason is because these people get hundreds of query letters a day, all right? Hundreds of them. And you need to be able to stand out by way of making sure that it looks like you've done your research, right? A lot of this has to do with whether or not you've done your homework. Super important to look like you've done your homework, be responsible. If you know that an agent, for instance, only represents young adult novels, don't send them your gory horror Stephen King knockoff, right? I mean, don't do that. It's a bad idea, okay? If you know that an agent has said specifically that they hate sparkly vampires, do not send them your manuscript about sparkly vampires, right? That is not a good idea ever, okay? And again, this is just like basic skills, right? You would never do this to anybody. I mean, it's, if this would be like going to a dermatologist when you have a podiatry problem, right? It makes absolutely no sense for you to do this. So, and the beauty of this is that in today's age, all of the information is out there online, right? There's a bunch of agents out there who have their own web pages. A lot of the information on what they read and what they like to read is out there on Twitter, for instance. A lot of them have extensive bios on their website. So, just be responsible, do the homework, and you should be okay in this personalization sense, right? Obviously, never start a query with Dear Super Agent. Find out what their name is, but Dear Super Agent McGee, for instance, that's something. Okay, you want to know what their name is, obviously, right? Again, be respectful, okay? The premise and the hook, this is where a lot of people get hung up, and we'll go into this very, very deeply. The premise of the hook is essentially your elevator pitch, right? So when you step into an elevator and you meet an agent, you have to be able to give them the reason they want to buy your book in like a very, very short period of time. Okay, that's the elevator pitch, right? And again, we'll go into this a little bit later on. So usually this comprises the protagonist, who the protagonist is, what their basic conflict is, and some teaser about how they're going to fix it. Okay, so in this particular case, Gabby, protagonist, is the first woman in her family to do unusual thing here, but her journey ends up doing something really unexpected here. Genuinely, that is the formula you would choose for a hook, okay? And then of course, here's the rest of the hook. Gabby is fun, sparky, dresses quirkily here, right? The unusual thing about her, and her desire to accomplish something here sets up a chain of events that threatens to change the way everything is done forever, okay? Now, obviously, these are just things I'm plugging in, but you can find some way to make it work for your particular book. And again, we'll go into this later on. Obviously, include the title of your manuscript, always in all caps because it's unpublished, right? If you are querying an unpublished work, it's always, always, always in all caps and not in italics. And of course, include the word count because the agent will want to know, all right? Your bona fides obviously are the things that you've done over the course of your writing life. If you haven't published much, that's okay. We'll go into that a little later on as well. And then of course, your closing, all right? I always tell people how to pronounce my name. If you have an unusual name, I've actually found this to be a really useful thing. People tend to, believe it or not, write back and call back more often people whose names they feel confident about pronouncing. That's just a fact. Okay, so if you have an unusual name, I would maybe do something like this. All right. Okay. So I'm going to give you a sample query letter. This is the query letter for my book, Not a Self-Help Book. This is the novel that was published in 2016. I queried this book 85 times and ended up with 1.5 agent offers, and I can tell you a little bit about that later on. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because it is long, but let's call out a couple things that we can see here, okay? So dear Mr. XYZ, right, his name is not XYZ, I'm just not going to give it to you here. I'm ready to query my contemporary novel, Lies My Mother Told Me, 66,200 words, okay? So the one thing about this opening already is that the genre and the subgenre is kind of wishy-washy, all right? And here's why. the reason I got to the time I got to querying this particular book to this particular agent or this particular publisher, sorry, I had already figured out that the book could fit into kind of several different subgenres. So I just tailored it here to this particular subgenre that I thought would work best with this particular publisher. All right. This is the letter that eventually won me a contract with the publishing house, but in the winning contract, the genre is women's contemporary fiction. Okay, so that's just something you want to look out for. Don't be wishy-washy, right? And then of course down here where this is the premise and the hook, right? And I've used this a couple of times. People have always said that it's a terrific premise and hook, right? But the reality is that I probably, if I was going to change this out today, I probably wouldn't use the phrase slave to self-help books, just because this word for slave is kind of a charged word today, right? Okay. And I also would have included many fewer plot points, right? There's way too many here. The letter will be stronger without so much text. This one is a whopping 477 words, and it's about 100 words longer than I like for a query letter. Okay, so you want to aim for 350 to 400 words. I would say no more than that. Okay. And then here, I just want to point out, we have a section right here where it says, lies my mother told me lives in the spaces between Bridget Jones's Diary and the Joy Luck Club. This is what we call composition titles, and we'll also be going into that later on. All right, the comp titles allow the agent to see not only where you're envisioning the book, right, but also where the agent might be able to pitch it, right? So it gives them kind of an additional idea. It gives them a leg up, if you will, towards thinking about your book, right? Because when it comes to selling somebody your book, you want to make that sale as easy as falling off a log in wet water, okay? You want to make it so easy that they can't help but buy it, okay? So if you can help them to see where it lives on the actual bookshelf, then that's a really good thing, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about these later on as well. So here are my bona fides. And this is another thing that I would change. Obviously, I have many more credentials now in the 4 years that are ensuing, but you can see that they're frankly, they're kind of earnest. You know, it's like, oh, you know, I've been published in the Christian Science Monitor, I have the Hairpin, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then I talk about how I'm a contributor to several anthologies, you know, so it's not so much that these are not true bona fides. It's more like they just sound a little earnest and they're kind of a mouthful, right? To be perfectly honest with you all, if you've gotten already to this point and the agent has read all of this and felt like they still want to read on, then you can afford to be a little not skimpy per se, but you can afford to not be so earnest. Like, don't pull an Ishan, okay? Don't do this, right? This is not. It's way too earnest. All right. I look forward to hearing from you about the simultaneous submission. What that means is that it's just giving the agent a clue that this query is also out to other agents. And there are some agents out there that will specifically say, do not query anybody but me. That's called an exclusive. I don't like those. I don't think it's fair, because the agent can also sometimes hold on to your query for like a whole 6 or 8 weeks or so, and then that puts you back. So do be on the lookout for agents who ask for exclusives. Asking for an exclusive typically comes after they ask for something like a full manuscript, okay? Thank you for consideration, blah, blah, so on and so forth. This first chapter is pasted in below as requested. Almost every agent or every editor will have a specific request for how many pages they want you to send along. Sometimes it's the first 3 pages, sometimes it's 10 pages, sometimes it's the whole first chapter, but they rarely will ask for the full manuscript, okay? All right, and then of course the sign off, again, that pronunciation note, okay? Okay, any questions so far about this particular section? Really? Cool. Okay. All right. So we're going to go on here to nonfiction queries. All right. So again, nonfiction queries are weird, okay, because they actually come with a whole set of a whole set of guidelines that you have to follow in addition to the additional query letter. So you have the query letter, but then you will also be expected to send along a proposal package. And there are some agents who will say, send me the whole package right away. The package can be somewhere between 45 and 60 pages. And some agents will just say, no, I'm not interested yet in the actual proposal. I'm just interested in the query letter for now, right? Okay, so just read those guidelines really careful, all right? So yeah, I mean, start with the query letter, and then these are the 3 rules: read the guidelines, read the guidelines, read the guidelines. 100%, you cannot go wrong by reading the guidelines. I'm that person who puts together IKEA furniture without the guidelines. I have learned the hard way, okay? I just, I just cannot stress this enough. And also, I forgot to tell you, by the way, that this is something I start off every session with, which is that although I'm giving you some tried and true advice here, some of the more creative aspects of this, right? This is what works for my brain, and the way I'm thinking about it and the way I'm conveying it to you is what works for my brain. Okay, so I want to be very cognizant that you all honor the creative parts of yourselves and your own big, beautiful brains. And if you have questions, or if you feel like I'm not conveying something that resonates with you, then you want to honor that. Okay, and just make sure that you're doing something that works with you. Okay. Also, I have made every mistake there is to make in publishing, and I am still here to tell about it. So if you have questions, let me know. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the query letter for Pinups, which is this book that we're reading for the California Imagist Gallery's first ever book club. Culturama book club. It is little. It's 44 pages long. Well, it's 65 pages from cover to cover, but it's 44 pages long in terms of text. Okay, so it's a little piece of work. So I kind of knew already who I wanted to query. There are really only a few publishers that will do this kind of small discrete publishing for an essay. So here's the opening. Dear Ms. Browning is the name of the publisher. The publisher, by the way, is Homebound Publications. My good friend Iris Graville published her work Hiking Naked with You, and I've been tracking Homebound ever since we knew she'd found a home with you. Okay, so there's the personalized opening, right? And I also, by the way, asked Iris to let Leslie know once I had sent in my query. Okay, so again, really keeping track on that and working those personal connections. I'm attaching here a manuscript about my long, complicated relationship with sport, 9,100 words. Within the manuscript, I address the volunteer tokenism of women in sport, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Okay, so what's the big difference here between this particular letter and the one I showed you before? The big difference is that the bona fides are way longer, right? They're a whole 2 paragraphs long, right? That's a really big deal. And the reason is because when you are looking to publish a nonfiction, what you're looking for is platform, first and foremost, okay? I'm just gonna take a side trip here into platform because it's kind of important. So you'll hear the phrase platform being bandied about a lot. And what that means is your capability as an individual to sell books, right? What is the probability that you have of selling books, okay? Now, in fiction, it matters less than in nonfiction because in fiction, you have the value and the originality of the story, right? The prose obviously matters a lot. And I'm not saying these things don't matter in nonfiction, but it matters a lot to be able to demonstrate your pull in this particular category, right? Okay, so in this particular set of bona fides, what I'm doing is demonstrating my capacity to sell books and to be able to get people behind this particular book. All right. What I didn't do in this particular set of bona fides, which was silly now, and which I did actually after the fact when I did the publishing contract, was to push my long history in the outdoor sports world. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization that was entirely about getting athletes to get back to the environment. I worked on the board of directors at an adventure racing nonprofit back in the early 2000s when adventure racing was just starting, right? So I have a lot of bona fides that I just did not dump in here. And in retrospect, that was like a silly thing to do, okay? It's okay, it ended up being published, it was fine, but still, it's just something I would do in the future, okay? You see down here where I say, I'm happy you asked for a marketing statement. I actually am a real sucker for marketing. I love marketing. I think it's really fun. I also think that nobody is better equipped to sell your book than you are as the author. So, for me, I just wanted to call that out. A lot of small publishers will ask you for a marketing statement or a marketing plan. And in fact, that will be a part of your nonfiction proposal. So it's something that I just wanted to make sure that the publisher knew I was happy to do, okay? All right. Okay, so here's another one. This is I'm going to admit this person. Okay, so this is one that I pulled from the interweb, and it is a query letter that I really kind of like. This book actually did eventually end up getting published. Dear Ms. Wells, are you dumb employed? Being dumb employed is all about the jobs you love to hate. Over the past year, dumbemployed.com has published over 1,500 of the weirdest and funniest stories about work. Check this out. This person already has a platform. Right? They have a whole .com based around the book that they want to write, right? So this is a pretty big deal. So their pitch and their bona fides are kind of like mashed together here, right? And then this one is this weird format where it's like it goes greeting, pitch, and then it goes back to the greeting again. If it was me, I would not have done it this way. But with that said, because these people are receiving so many queries a day, you want to make sure that you are full on, like getting their attention right away, right? And the fact that there's a .com already or on done employed is a pretty big deal, okay? And then, it kind of like gives you exactly what the book is going to be about here. And then on page 2, it talks more about their bona fides and then the closing. All right, again, this one is too long for my particular taste, but it is something that ended up working, okay? Okay, so here are the components. Remember that scary 45 to 60 page package I was talking about? In my notes here, I actually have it running from 50 to 75 pages. So, depending on what you're doing, it might be something that actually does run that long. But you need to have these particular things within the actual proposal. You need to have sample chapters. This is a list of comps that I was talking about earlier, like what books are already out there and how they're selling. Okay, so you need to know about that. You need to have a pretty solid marketing plan, including your target audience, your particular platform, plus your CV. If you don't have a writer's CV, then you would include, say you're writing a book on nursing, okay, you would include your bona fides in your CV in terms of like where you've been a nurse, for instance, okay. And then of course you would want a complete book outline, right? So that's the reason that this thing is so long. Your sample chapters might be long, your book outline might be long, maybe your CV is like 50 pages long. Don't send a 50-page CV. Don't do that. That's nobody wants to see that. But they do want to see, that you are legit and that you are capable of doing this thing. Okay. All right. So that's the end of the first part of this. And what I'd like to do now is, am I still screen sharing? I am. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do now is see if you all want to go into breakout rooms, because the activity now will be to assemble you know what? No, I'm going to send you all away to do some homework. Okay. So I would like you all to take 10 minutes and assemble the parts of your query letter. So just to give you a rundown again, those parts are your greeting and personalization, your premise and your hook, your bona fides, and your closing, okay? So what you need to do is just see if you have all those pieces in line. We don't have to share them. We don't have time to share them today. But I just want to make sure that you all have those pieces together. All right. And please keep in mind as well too that when we come back, we'll be talking about what comprises a great comp title and what comprises a great hook and premise. Okay. All right. So everybody go away for 10 minutes. Come back to me at 11:40. Okay.
They could stay in the room though, right?
Yeah, you can stay in the room. Unless we're distracting to you. If we're distracting to you, then you should leave.
Yishan, I don't know if you saw the comment in chat that memoirists should use the novel type of querying, correct?
It depends. That depends on the agent. So some agents will want to see, and thank you for flagging that for me. Some agents will want to see sample chapters right away, right? And some agents will not want to see them at all. So in that case, like this particular work is a memoir, but it's also really, really short, right? So in that case, the query letter was just fine. But again, I would read the guidelines. Typically though, as a rule, I would say that, yeah, it would be the novel type of query. Yes, Cindy, the assignment is to assemble the pieces of your query letter. Sure. John, I'll be right back, okay?
Cindy, so what we're doing is we're just assembling the parts of the of your query letter, just all those things that she was talking about, like what is it about, what are your bona fides, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, John, can I ask you a Zoom question?
Sure.
So I sent you a message privately, but then all of a sudden there was a file attached to my name, and I didn't know if I did any more emailing or any more chatting, whether that would be included, because it wasn't a file I wanted to share.
I think that was an accident.
I couldn't get it to go away.
Huh.
And it wasn't like in the put your message here. It was next to my name. It was
Oh,
so weird. I don't think it's there now.
no, I don't see it.
Yeah, had I sent it, you would have gotten all. It's there again. Yeah, file. Huh. And you would get like totally unedited acres and acres of crap from my writing. How to get it out of there? Actually, maybe I could do a test. I'll send you a private message and see if it actually goes. I don't know if it's just there for my information or what.
Yeah, it's fine.
No file went with it.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that is weird. Yeah, it's got my file. They got eyes on me. The watchers, the 2020 watcher people.
It's the Zoom patrol.
And so you said this is happening every month, the first, or till Christmas or something?
No, we're going to keep going just year round. It might take me a month to figure out exactly how to do it. So it might start in January, but we'll do January through December from now on.
Wow, and it's going to be called Culturama if I tell people, give them that link up address from.
Yeah. The more the better.
Wow. Thank you for all you. I don't know where you get all your energy either. You
Well,
energetic people.
I'm a vampire for my students. I siphon it right off them.
Hi, Yishan.
Nice to see you, Daniel.
I can't stay for long. I have a thing at 11 I got to get off of. I mean, at noon, I mean.
This one's being taped, and after this, we have T. Anders Carson, who is
Oh,
the
yeah.
world's most. Yeah, you remember. Everybody remembers Anders.
Yeah, cool. And
You
they're
get 5.
all, I can access this afterwards if I miss one.
Yeah, let me give you the link for that. There it is. And right now, the top story is Ishan's book. But it's this, and just go over here and become part of the community.
Okay. Where is
And,
that? Is that on Facebook?
no, it's its own website. So, and I put it in right now.
Okay, got it. All right. Blogs. I
think somebody just got extra credit in my class.
I love the sound of somebody taking a creepy snap picture and you don't know who did it.
Oh, that was me. That was me taking a picture of that website address.
Okay.
Creepy, Daniel.
I pinned you and took a picture of you, Yishan.
Excellent. That's, you really don't know what to think of any of that.
Oh, I can do this now. Look at that. I'm gonna have to get some wax.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to get some mustache wax. I could do this now. Yeah, I can. It's COVID stash.
COVID stash, nice. I love it.
Just dye just the mask, the mustache black. So that
Can finally look as sinister as I feel.
John, I have a hard time picturing you feeling sinister at all.
I know.
Hmm.
That's a pretty sinister look.
You must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent.
I'm still catching up with the mustache wax part of it.
You might not have played that game when you were a child. Did you ever play that game?
No, what?
So here's the whole pantomime. You must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. I'll pay the rent. My hero.
Surely there must be other variations on that.
There must be. That's the only one I've ever heard of, though.
Right. That feels like something you should put to Twitter and see if that works out.
You know,
And then-
John, I had a friend in San Diego. He would shave right down. He would have half of his face clean shaven, half to shave with his beard, so that he could present his feminine side or his masculine, depending on the need.
maybe if I do a reading for, like, old John, young John.
I'm just thinking about how what a disadvantage I'm at since I can't do any of that. I'd have
Got a
to.
Sharpie.
True. It's true. I do have a Sharpie. Probably some Velcro around too.
Yeah.
And they have some.
Oh, he's frozen.
Oh, well.
Okay. All right, friends, we're back. Well done. Okay. All right. So I have something to tell you. All right. What I didn't tell you this time around, and this is with purpose, is I didn't tell you how to go find the agent that you particularly want, right? Okay. And this is in part because I wanted you to discover how frustrating this is to do without the right tools. Not the nicest thing to do, but it's always a good object correlative, right, John?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so here's the way that you go do research on the agents that you want. Okay, there's a couple of tools that you can use, and I'm going to put them in the chat box right now. The first is querytracker.com. Querytracker.com. Okay, so what is this? This is a tool by which you can go in and search by the type of agent that you want. You can dial down to whether they take snail mail or electronic submissions. You can dial down to the type of story that you're submitting or the type of memoir that you have, right? Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, you can dial down to the genre that you're writing. And it's a fantastic tool. It's really great. All right. So the bad news about Query Tracker is that you do have to pay for some of the better functionality, but the good news is that it's $25 a year. Okay, so it's a terrific tool. I believe there are also institutional accounts for that sort of thing. So John, that might be something we look into for Culturama / Mount Sac / California Images Gallery. The other tool is something that's even more expensive. It's called duotrope.com. And this is really great for, the reason I love Duotrope is because it not only gives you all that functionality, it allows you to look for agents and allows you to look for publishers of your shorter works, okay? Why do I love this so much? Well, the thing is that as a writer, you're not just going to be, yes, John?
I actually had a question about Query Tracker.
Yes.
I've never used it. Is it better than just doing your own spreadsheet?
I like it better, but I'm also a little bit neurotic. And so I have both my own spreadsheet and the Query Tracker account. But again, whatever works for your brain is the thing that will work the best for you. Okay?
What is the advantage of Query Tracker?
Well, the advantage of Query Tracker is that when you do the search, right, you can then just sort of like check a box and it will dump it into your Query Tracker spreadsheet, right? But also it allows you to search with way more functionality, right? Because it is specific to the agenting world, right? As opposed to, and it will also do small publishers and independent publishers, okay? So if you were just Google search it, for instance, hi, I'm a writer and I'm looking for a publisher for my sci-fi space opera, okay, for instance, right? I mean, that's great, and you can plug it into Google, but you're less likely to get a lot of results that are clustered around the agent search. You're more likely to get results that are clustered around people who are writing these things, okay? So Google is terrific, but something like Query Tracker or Duotrope is a better option because it is highly specific to that world, okay? Does that make sense, John? Answer the
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely.
Okay.
I've always used Duotrope, but I've never used Query Tracker, and I've always
Yeah.
wondered.
Okay. So Duotrope was built for the literary magazine industry, so i.e. shorter works, right? And as I was saying, I love the shorter works part of it because as a writer of longer works, you're not just going to be leaning on that to feed your entire literary career, right? That would, to me, it would be absolutely not possible because we might be working on longer works, but those may get published once every year, once every 4 years. If you're me, once every decade. But if you're consistently putting out smaller works and getting them published on a regular basis, then that will be a lot better for you. Okay, you'll get more productivity that way, and you'll also be building your platform. Okay, all right. So Duotrope is built around literary magazines, but they also have expanded to small presses and agents. I personally have not used it for an agent search. It is about $60 a year. Okay, but again, there are institutional probabilities for that sort of thing. Okay, the final one that I'm going to give to you is something called Publishers Weekly. Oh, no, sorry. Publishers Marketplace. Okay, now, here's the reason it's last on my list. Publishers Marketplace is the most expensive out of all of them. And I only use it when I'm actively querying a big project, okay? And the reason for that is that I want to be able to, it'll give you the deals that have been struck for each particular book. It'll tell you how much those books sold for, and it will allow you to really dial down specifically into what the projects that sold for were about. And on top of that, it'll give you the agent house that sold that particular deal. Okay, so again, this is the tool that will give you the interstitial between what happens when somebody lands a book and what happens when that particular person's agent then goes to push it to the editor's house, okay, to the editing house. All right. Okay, so those are the 3 tools that I use on a regular basis. Any questions about those before we move on? Okay, great, terrific. All right, come back to me if you have questions or dump them in the box. You know, Zoom is one of those things where it can be really hard to think of a question in enough time and then articulate it in text. So, so I fully understand if we're needing to go back and forth to that. All right, so here we go. We're gonna go on to how to pick comp titles. Meh.
I have a question. Are you
Yes.
gonna go back to the query letter we worked on? Because I wanted to hear more about, you mentioned the bona fides, and if you don't have enough that are professional or necessary relevant, what you might do about that.
We'll do that in the question and answer period at the end.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go. Comp titles. All right. Can you all see that? Okay. Yeah. Yes, John. Okay. Terrific. Here we go again. This is Ishan's game of how do we manage PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So this comp titles are a great way for you to lean on books that have been previously published. All right. Okay. Before I forget, that's also another great way for you to find agents. If you have books that you loved, you can go into the acknowledgements portion of them, right, and see who was the agent for that book. You can't always, the writer doesn't always list the particular agent that aided them in the publishing of that book. But if you love a book so much, it might be a really good way for you to look at who published that particular book and who agented that book into birth. Okay. All right. So what is a comp title? You're going to hear them referred to by 3 different terminologies. They're usually called comp titles, but they're also called comparative titles, comparable titles, and competitive titles. Okay. But what it actually means is a piece of media that's been published before that you might also find on the shelf next to your book. All right. So why are they important? As we said before, they help an agent or an editor to picture the premise of your work. They're not required at all, right? This is not something that you have to do, but I use it on a regular basis. But they can also help you with figuring out which agents to push. So even if you don't use it in your query letter, it's a good tool for your own particular edification, all right? Because you know that if an agent has worked on a book that you selected as a comp, then that agent also might be interested in your book, right? So for instance, my friend Roz was working on a work of historical fiction, and she was pretty easily able to find the books that she loved that were historical fiction and pitch those particular agents, and indeed was able to land one of those agents who worked on a book that she loved. Okay. All right, so, okay, how do we find them, right? Then what's the best way to look for a comp title? There's a couple different ways. You can look for books and media in the same genre. And of course, this precludes the fact that you know what genre you're in. This is not that session, but you can find lots of information about where to find what particular genre you're in on the Googles, okay? Google's our friend. Look for books and media with the same target audience, right? So make sure that you know who's reading your book, right? The person who reads Harry Potter is not going to be the same person who reads V.C. Andrews, for instance, right? Okay. And of course, be realistic. Don't always aim for the huge bestseller. Everybody says my book is the next, my book is the next Twilight, okay? But then everybody's eyes glaze over and it's not going to be a good comparison, all right? Now, as always, there are going to be certain rule breakers to this, right? There's always going to be people who say something like me. I said my book fills the spaces between Bridget Jones's Diary and the Joy Luck Club, right? These are classics. You know, these are books that everybody knows. They were huge bestsellers, and yet they immediately were able to give people an idea of what it was. And part of that is because there was no book previously that was the Asian Bridget Jones. Okay, so it was kind of the way that it worked, and it was able to immediately lock those things into place. So that's the way that it worked for me. Okay, and by the way, I should say that although I did have agent offers for not a self-help book, I ended up not going with it, and I can answer questions about why it is that was the case. Okay, all right, so the other things to remember, obviously, are to be unexpected but comprehensible. All right, so what this means is that I heard this story about this agent who got a query that was quote unquote Anne of Green Gables meets The Hunt for Red October. What does that mean? Like nobody knows what that means, right? I mean, it's just, you can't even, you can sit there and this is the thing, right? Like, again, like I said, agents get 300 queries a day. They're not going to sit there and be like, oh, what does that mean? Like, okay, so is Anne on the submarine, or does a submarine going to Ontario, Canada? I don't know. Like nobody's going to waste their time thinking about that. They're just going to be like, I have no idea what that means. And then, out it goes, right? So don't do that to yourself. Like, don't try to be like overly clever and like, see, oh, nobody's ever heard of Anne of Green Gables meets Hunt for Red October before. Like, that's just, it's very strange. Okay. So don't get siloed, right? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is like, don't just think about the world of books, right? If you're looking to publish a memoir, don't just look in the realm of memoir, right? Consider novels that might attack the same themes that your work is attacking. If your book takes place in Las Vegas, but it's some kind of Hunter S. Thompson book, don't just look in memoir, right? Look again in novels that might take place in Las Vegas, okay? The other thing about it too, obviously, is don't get siloed just in the world of books, okay? Think about popular media or podcasts that make sense for you, right? We saw that great example of dumbemployed.com, right? What if I was pitching a book that was a novel version of Dumb Employed, right? I mean, I would totally say that, right? I would say Dumb Employed plus something else, because I don't want it to look like somebody's already done it, So just, consider that the world of media right now is so broad and so open to us. A friend of mine pitched her book, Same River Twice, as being Wild, this is Cheryl Strayed's memoir, right? Wild meets the last episode of Transparent. Okay, so I mean, that's fantastic. I've never seen Transparent, but like I kind of know what it's about, and I already know that that's a book that I want to read. Okay, so don't feel compelled to stay within the realms of the book world, or even the realms of the genre that you're looking at. Okay, you also want to consider the comp sales trajectory and the age or vintage, right? So again, I of course broke this rule where it was like Bridget Jones's Diary is a decade old, and so is the Joy Luck Club, but it is definitely something that I felt suited the needs of those. But in general, I would say look for at least one of your comp titles to have been published in the last 5 years. Don't pick something really obscure, right? If your favorite author did something that ended up being like a pamphlet that is published by his college or whatever back in the year 1968, I mean, that's not something that you want to pick as a comp title, right? And you want to consider it like good search engine optimization terms, right? You want it to be fresh but popular enough, right? So something that people wouldn't necessarily think of, but you want it to be something that they might Google on the off chance that they're interested. Okay, so those are the kind of cardinal rules for comp titles. Okay, and of course, there are caveats for everything, right? I mean, the agent that you're querying may have specifically said somewhere in an interview that they don't want comp titles, or they may not mind getting comp titles that are related to the classics, right? Or maybe you already know through your dedicated research, which you all will do now, that a particular agent doesn't consume a whole lot of media outside of books, right? So, but just be responsible, again, like I said before, tread knowledgeably and you'll be fine, okay? Yeah, okay, so I have some possible phrases for you, all right? So when you go to write that section of the query letter, you're going to want to find some narrative way to be able to put these comp titles into the book, right? So you might say something like X meets Y, right? Okay, here's the Bridget Jones's Diary meets the Joy Luck Club, Wild meets the last episode of Transparence, right? Or you could say something like readers who loved X will also love my book, right? Okay, so another way to look at this type of thing is to go to bookshop.org and look at the local bookstores lists and shelves. And of course, you can check out Goodreads, list with this book section, right? So you can go onto goodreads.com and have a look at that particular engine and see what other books that people who have read your comp are reading. Did I do that right? I think so. Or of course you can go to big guerrilla retailers, customers who bought this also bought this particular book, right? Sometimes that doesn't help because you end up with like people who bought like water for chocolate also bought a bar of chocolate, and that's like not useful because you wouldn't use that in a comp. Okay, so yeah, don't do that. All right. Okay. All right, terrific. Let's see, where are we now? Okay, so of utmost importance, please have as much fun as possible with this, okay? You discover authors and books that you may not have known about before. Talk to your friends about what they're reading, see what your favorite authors are reading, because this is like the world of internet transparency, and we can, people share what they're reading and all that, right? This is probably my very favorite part of querying, right? Which is seeing that people have published works like ours is inspiring and eye-opening, but it's also such a great opportunity to be able to reach out and discover authors that you may not have known before, okay? All right, cool. Okay, any questions about comp titles? Okay, so I'm gonna send you into breakout rooms. And you all are going to, how many of you have projects that you're working on actively here? Elizabeth. Okay, I actually can't see everybody because not everybody have your things turned on. That's totally cool. All right, so John, if we do random assignments into breakout rooms, is that okay?
That's okay, except for that will split up the sign interpreters.
Okay. All right. So folks who are hard of hearing and you want to stay with the ASL interpreters, stay in this room, right? Is that right, John?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the rest of you will send out into individual breakout rooms. We have, well, how many people do we have in this session? 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have
15?
Yeah.
15 people in the session. Okay, so we're gonna do 8 in one room and 7 in the other. Okay.
We actually have 23.
Okay. Oh, right. It says so in the. Okay. So then we'll do 3 breakout rooms. Okay. Does that work? And you can handle that on the back end? Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Yushan. This is Nikel.
Hey.
And I'm also talking to Abby and Brian. They actually have to go to a different class. So I think the 3 of us are going to step out now.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much. Thank
you. No problem.
Brian. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. See you. Thanks, Abby. Thanks for stopping in, guys. Okay, all right, so here's what we're gonna do in the breakout rooms. I would like you all to share very briefly what your projects are about, okay? And here's where we're gonna be leaning on the power of literary community, right? Because we all are probably reading things that are separate from everybody else's title. And if you don't wanna share your book project, that's completely okay. We just wanna get an idea for what some particular comp titles might be for your individual books, okay? This breakout room is gonna be another 10 minutes long, so don't take too much time. Well, no, we're gonna make it 15 minutes. Okay. No, it's already, oh my God, it's already noon. You guys, how much time is passing? It's so fast. Okay, so let's do a 10-minute breakout room. All right. And if you all can just share very briefly with an eye towards time, your individual projects and what you're working on, and then maybe you all can come up with some comp titles for each other. All right. How does that sound? Okay, cool. All right, great. Okay, John.
How many breakout rooms?
3, what, 2, 3, 2?
2. Let's go 2.
2. Okay, sounds good.
John, I'm assuming Yvonne and I will just stay here in this room with you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, is there anyone here who's deaf and hard of hearing?
I don't know. No one let me know, and I didn't see the participants list. Okay, and Yvonne said no one alerted her that they were deaf or hard of hearing.
I know Gabrielle, and I think she stopped away from her thing. And I know Anne. I don't know Skylar. Are you there, Skylar? Stephanie, Gabrielle, Anne?
So far, no response. But you know what? If someone's deaf and they need the help, they'll come back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we'll just hang out.
Okay. We have another one that starts at 1.
Antonio, are you on at 1 o'clock?
No.
Yeah, I'm on at 1. Yeah.
I was going to say that Anders tends to be a little frenetic, but you're used to me and Ishan, so you're okay.
Well, and he was in your class too. And didn't he already do a workshop like the first weekend? So, yeah.
I'm trying to read your signs, and I'm getting a little bit. I took half a class, Antonio, so now I feel like I'm an expert.
Oh, that's good. You took half a class?
Yeah.
That's so.
Yeah, well, I had to drop because of stuff like this, but it was Fred's class, and he's really good. He's really.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
I can look impressive to hearing people and confuse deaf people all.
That's well said.
Antonio, where are you at right now?
Where am I sitting?
Well, like, where are you? Like, because I heard like you moved out of state.
I know. This is what I tell people. I work all over. And so for work, I work in California and DC. Right now, my behind is seated in Houston.
Oh, okay.
However, I already have a trip. I'll be sitting somewhere else come the end of this month.
Oh.
Here's a big question for me. Are you going to come to Sequoia and Kings Canyon this summer?
I don't know. Actually, is it going to happen?
If it happens, it's going to happen for the deaf students first, because that's who all the people in the park like.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, it depends if Julie comes after me. Yvonne is quite clear.
Yvonne, I can promise you the nicest piece of dirt to sleep on the entire mountain. Right? The best.
I camped 3 times, hated every single time. We did real simple, local, close to home, Big Bear. Then we did, was it Yosemite, I think, one year? And then I forgot what the third place was. The first time we camped, it was a 3-person tent for 3 of us. And my ex-husband was like, yeah, we probably should have gotten a bigger tent. I'm like, you think? So yeah, and then we had air mattresses. The second time I was like, I'm not sleeping on the air mattress and waking up to seeing all the bugs on the tent again. So I opted to sleep in the car. But where we had parked, it was really cool. It had like a little bubbling creek right by us. And so we heard that all night. That was fine. But he parked on an angle. So all night long, I was kind of sliding down a bit. So yeah, that wasn't so much fun. And then and the windows aren't tinted or dark or anything, and I didn't cover them. So all night I was also like, what's going on outside? What's going on outside? Then the third time we got cots, but the cots were a little high for me and had the metal rail my legs would dangle over, which would cut off the circulation because of the metal rail. I wanted the low one. He was like, no, I want the bigger one. Fine. And so, yeah, We're no longer married, but yeah, that was my third time camping, and never again, ever again.
Let me just tell you
Saw
on
the
this.
bears, saw it. Yeah, no.
Well, like last time when Antonio was there, we had one night where we got all the creepy crawlies out of the way. We saw bats stayed with us, a rattlesnake, scorpions. It was just thing after thing. Yeah, the ranger was there. That was nice.
Who was there?
The ranger, Jonathan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he explained the whole thing to their students.
Oh, that's right. Especially like with the scorpions. That was a concern of mine because
Yeah.
they were around.
Yeah, well, we stayed at my dad's cousin's house one time. He's up by Sacramento, but like a really small rural type area. And my son went in to take a shower, and he kind of yelled. He was really young. Kind of yelled. He's like, "Mom!" And he wears glasses, like real thick glasses. Like, there's something on the wall, and it was one of those tiny, tiny little scorpions. Which I found out from my dad's cousin that she's been bit by them before, and they just hurt for a really long time. So I caught it in a water bottle, and we were looking at it later. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of bugs. I don't mind bugs. Like, I'll kill them and move them or whatever. The creepy crawling things, I'm not huge fans of them, but to wake up and see the ants just crawling, or yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm good without.
The worst one I had is we had just people in our camp forever. I was the host of the camp, and it'd been like 9 straight weeks of people, which means all the predators gone, and we were having a rodent boom. And I was sitting there one night in my flip flops, and something ran across the top of my feet, and I was like, "Oh, that's no good."
Oh yeah, I wouldn't enjoy that at all.
And also, my rule was always we needed to have running water, toilet, and to wash your hands, minimum. And yeah, one night we did not, and I was not happy about that. So yeah, that's the other thing too, is it has to have some kind, even if it's like coin operated, whatever, I don't care, as long as I can flush it and wash my hands, I'm good to go. But yeah, not a fan of camping. Give me a hotel any day. I told Julie I think the first year she did it, she's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Nope, happy to help in any way I can. If there's a nearby cabin hotel I could stay in that has running water, I'm happy to go pay my way for that to help you out. But other than that, no."
Well, there is, but it's really expensive. It's like
Oh.
Four Seasons expensive. I can't believe anybody goes to the thing. It's like
Really?
$300 a night. It's like, not going to do that.
I'd rather do that than camp on the ground.
I wouldn't want to pay that either, not that amount. But I think I'm a fan of maybe cabin, staying in a cabin. I did the tent. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Jumped
Well,
off the rock,
Yeah.
did that 3 times, and then I came to myself and said, "You don't have to do that. I don't enjoy it. I don't have to jump off that rock ever again into freezing cold water. I'm good."
Yeah.
I mean, but the people, just the kids and other team, they were in the water. They enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
I sat on that log looking at them enjoying it, saying, I wish I enjoyed it, but I don't enjoy freezing
water.
I don't.
I sit there and I watch that too. It's just no thrill to me. I don't know why anybody does that. But,
Not at all. Yeah, that's where we saw the rattlesnake, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. So I think we were the ones who sent spaghetti one year, like bags of.
Oh, thank you. That was nice.
Yeah, I remember that. That was really good. I mean, I thought the system was fantastic. They really did. And Gloria did a great job, I thought, with the kitchen help, the students who were helping with that. I enjoyed it. They cooked and had the menu. Yeah, it was good. We had the bonfire, the s'mores one
Right.
night.
That's great. I don't do s'mores anymore because they're beard unfriendly, but I'll do the deconstructed s'more.
What's that? Taking just the graham cracker and then the marshmallow.
That's right.
That's I love that deconstructed s'more.
It makes it sound sophisticated. It's just me
Right.
eating marshmallows.
So says the English teacher. Makes sense. It comes from you, John.
Yeah.
So are they thinking that you guys will be doing camping again this coming summer?
Well, it depends on when the vaccine comes in. So I'm hoping, you know, they say April, but then of course it's like 2 months of stuff after it comes out, because you get one shot, 28 days, one shot, another 28 days. But I think if they were going to do anybody, I run about 5 weeks of this, but who they like the best are the deaf students. They feel like they're, you know, actually contributing something to humanity in an important way.
Right.
Not that the other groups aren't good, but it's often, you know, just artists and poets and stuff, and they already have their own money, and they've been there before, and it's really a different kind of feel. So,
That's cool.
but I miss my artists, my poets too. Those great people.
Has there been any word on campus about coming back?
Not that I've heard.
So RCC is starting to bring their students back. Little by little. I think the first people that went back were the athletics and the those types of classes. My son does musical theater there, or does music there, and music is a second group of students to be brought back on campus. So just before, they're supposed to be going back for like meetings with the accompanist, the teacher, and then the student. So they're going back in threes, basically. And the piano accompanist got sick, so they had to put it.
We're having a COVID spike now, like we had in April.
Right.
We need to not do this.
Right. I agree. I hope that they don't go back. I hope that they change their mind and cancel that, at least for the rest of the semester. I mean, it's so close to the end of the semester. There's no point in bringing them back now.
Yeah. I what I've heard is no spring semester, and I think we all knew that. But I'd really be surprised if we had summer on campus, and I'd even be a little. I'm not sure about the fall. I mean, if we can go to Sequoia, obviously we can go to on campus, but I don't know.
I know local school, little Catholic school, they're bringing their students back. I think they're gonna have 3 in a room at a time.
Oh, geez.
With the teacher. I'm like, why? Why? How about a drive-through check-in? Each teacher gets a drive-through check-in. All the teachers there spaced out, you know.
Yeah.
Quick little drive-through check-in with the car if they need to check in with students that way.
Well, as a graduate of Catholic school for 12 years, I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it. About the way they function.
Yeah. Well, I know the administration for the Chaffee district, they're all back on campus. All the principals are working from on campus. Teachers were called back onto campus. The district wants all the teachers to teach from their classroom instead of teaching from home, which I would have said, but if I have childcare issues, who's now going to pay for my childcare?
Yeah.
Because they're all home too.
Yeah. So what are you supposed to do? Hire somebody to live with you 24 hours? That's the only way to possibly do that.
Right.
I wonder if they're allowing the teachers to have the kids in the classroom with them.
They're not.
I mean their own children. Oh my God.
The only ones allowed on campus are the employees, the Chaffee district employees.
Awful.
Yeah. So my sister is an administrator at on Chaffee campus, and my brother-in-law teaches at Chaffee High School, and so they're both back on campus, but their kids are all older. Kids are 18 and older. Yeah, but they're all out and about doing kind of whatever they want, going to Arizona for partying with friends, and so they don't come over here at all. Nowhere by the grandparents. Yeah. Nope.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah, it is. But we're doing Zoom parties. Like for Thanksgiving, all our family will be on Zoom instead. So made little Kahoot games for all of us to play.
Yeah. Well, that's so much better than actually going over. I really don't want to kill my parents. Like that's one of my top 5 things.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. God.
So yeah, we're finding ways of making it work. When my nephew had his birthday, he turned 5. My sister and her family my younger sister, they isolate quite a bit, and so do we here. So we felt comfortable enough for all of us to get together, and that was 9 of us together, inside, outside, all over the place. But but at the same time, like I'm not going to the grocery stores too much. We're doing Instacart mostly, unless there's something that I really, really want to pick out. Like the turkey sales, you don't get the turkey sales through Instacart. So
Mm.
yeah, so I went to the grocery store for that. But other than that, we'll Instacart everything.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that for a while ourselves. I'm not comfortable going to the groceries now.
Yeah, we go the last hour of the grocery store. So whenever we went, it was my son and I, we both went. And it was like there were 4 other people shopping.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ann was going like at 11,
Not actually 9.
9.
Nine was
That's
better.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Last time I went, it was too busy. I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, but we can Instacart stuff, that's all right.
Instacart's not bad. They do pretty good, especially if you give them preferences. Like when we get avocados, we like to have them hard so that we can control the ripening on them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then please get us hard avocados. And we just put descriptions as to what we want in each of for a lot of those types of items.
What I've been hearing, though, is it's like teenagers going and shopping and they just don't know how to shop because they're teenagers, right?
Right. I've not had a bad experience. The thing that happens to us most often is the Stater Brothers that we go to has a in-store shopper, and that in-store shopper is not the one to deliver the food. So sometimes we set it up and it's shopped, and then they put it in either the freezer or the refrigerator, and then when a driver becomes available, then they bring it. So sometimes it's outside of the time that we were intending for it to come. And they don't give us the option for us to be able to go pick it up ourselves.
Oh.
So, yeah. But other than that, we've not had meat come back spoiled or old or anything. Costco with their salmon, we've had an issue with the expiration date. So we have to make sure that we're clear. Please get us an expiration date that's 2 weeks out, not within the week. But other than that, like my sister uses Instacart a lot. Yeah, we've not had any problems. Nothing major.
That's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be us going and traveling a lot. And okay, here we come.
Oh, you guys, I am so sorry. I did not realize that you needed us to leave the room. I thought it was automatic. So how many of you have I lost? Have I lost everybody?
Wait.
It over.
Yeah, I think everybody's still here.
Okay, cool.
Everyone's in.
All right, it looks a lot smaller because I only have 12 people in my participations now. We had 23.
Yeah, I can. They're all in the other room. Would you like me to close the room?
Bring them back. Yes,
Okay.
Close the room. Thank you.
It gives them 1 minute, so it'll take 1 minute for them to come.
Oh no, I think they can leave automatically because we'd left automatically too.
Yeah, they can leave, but
We were all captive in our own room. We had no idea. Sorry about that, John.
Yeah,
oh my God, it's too funny. Oh, my goodness. John, you're never gonna want to work with me again over Zoom. You're like, what happened to this lady?
Andrew, are you there? Oh, I'll go in the chat. I thought of one.
Okay, wait, I think Andrew is here. He's here. He's muted.
Probably stepped out to the bathroom or something.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Yishun, can you tell me again, what was the Joe Scott Coe book? Was it a book?
No, it's just she has a body of work.
Okay.
That
All
yeah.
right. Sure.
I'm just trying to think. Like I don't actually know the work that Andrew was referring to. So maybe y'all can exchange information afterwards, and
Okay.
he can give it to you. Her most recent work though is about the Texas sniper. It's fascinating.
I see that. It's called Listening to Kathy.
No,
No?
not that one.
Oh.
What's the name of her, guys? What is the name of Joe Scott Coe's book about the
Mass.
Oh, it's called Mass. Yeah.
Mass. Okay.
Listening to
Thanks.
Kathy is related to Mass, though.
Yeah.
Andrew, I put one in the chat for you. I thought of N.K. Jemisin. I don't know if you've read any of her. She writes novels and short stories, but
Oh,
she's
yeah.
got great
I'll check it out.
magical characters.
That's true. That's a good one. Okay, guys,
yeah.
I'm going to move us along. This one is this particular session is going to be the one that will take the most brain power from you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do this PowerPoint presentation, and you all will go away. But I'm going to leave my email address for you all. So the exercises that we were going to do together, you'll do them alone, and then you can come back to me with questions later on. All right. Okay. All right. So this is the session on how to write a great hook. Okay. And this is, again, this is like, pay attention, sharpen your pencils, because we're going to do some work here. Okay. Share screen. Here we go. Yishan's incredible skill set on display here. Okay. All right, so this is the session about hooks and premises. All right, it's again, I like this particular portion of querying because it actually is one of those things where you can really tinker with words, and it's like a couple of lines makes a huge difference. Okay, so here are a few tips on how to nail your premise in your hook. And again, you will hear about this being spoken as like elevator pitches, or log lines is another way that you hear about saying it. Okay. So the first question you want to answer is like, what is your premise? Okay. And really the premise is basically the one line that's the character plus the conflict. So this is, by the way, the thing you see in newspapers that gives you like the quick summary of what you're about to watch. And for instance, one of them is this one here. This is The Wizard of Oz. Transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first person she meets and then teams up with 3 strangers to kill again. It's The Wizard of Oz, okay? It's completely The Wizard of Oz, but it's recrafted in a way that really makes you want to watch the thing. It makes you want to pay attention, all right? So where we have here, here's the protagonist, okay, the young girl, right? Okay, and then here's the conflict, right? She kills the first person she meets and then teams up with 3 strangers to kill again. Oh yeah, you want to watch that show. You want to read that book, right? Absolutely, okay? Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna mute people here. Okay, all right, terrific. Okay, and this is another way to look at this, right, is to get like really specific. All right, so specificity is my go-to rule for everything from flabby prose to falling asleep prescriptions. Okay, so if I told you I had a crush, for instance, on my college lit professor, that's one thing. Like everybody's had that, no big deal. Okay, but if I said that my best memory of him was of the day I told him I'd have to skip class because I wanted to go skiing, and then he said it was fine as long as I'd done the homework, and then my favorite memory of him is of the day the lights went out in our classroom, and he said, Groucho Marx said, outside of a book, dogs are a man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read, right? I mean, he did this all while like falling over chairs trying to find the actual light switch, right? So you would get a much more nuanced view of why I had a crush on him, right? It's no longer just, oh, Ishan had a crush on a college professor, which is like every schoolgirl story ever, right? It's now you have like a full picture of who this guy is, right? So that's why specificity is so important, okay? And one way that you can do it is this particular methodology, right? First of all, you look for generalizing within your query, okay? And then you replace the general with the specific, all right? So for instance, here's how you would do it yourself. Instead of platitudes like your character needs to grow up, or she falls in love, or he encounters the hardest time of his life, or whatever, write things down that are specific to your book's specific plot line, right? Or to your book's unique strengths, okay? So if you have a character who has a particular tic, right, that ruins their entire life all the time, then you want to put that in. You don't want to put down that they're a wallflower who like never gets any dates. Like that's every high school book ever, right? That would be really boring. You want something that is specific to your book strength, right? And I think in some ways this can be really counterintuitive, because we're always looking for that universal narrative because we think it'll appeal to everybody. But the truth is that readers are smart and agents are extra smart, and they can read between those lines to be able to pick out what's specific. Okay, so definitely be sure to look for what's specific. All right, and we're gonna hold on a second. I just want to make sure I didn't skip anything here because that last section seemed really, yeah, okay. All right, so here's the way we're gonna actually practice this, right? We're gonna practice with Jack and the Beanstalk, okay? One way you can say it is, in Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack needs to grow up, okay? But really, after a colossal mistake in which he trades a whole cow for a handful of beans, Jack realizes it's time to trade his little boy naivete for some big boy pants, and not just because mama said so, right? You would so read that over Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack needs to grow up, right? This is a completely different book now, but it is highly specific to exactly what's happening in the Jack and the Beanstalk, right? This is where do we see this? Here's the actual character, right? Jack, okay? And here's the inciting incident, right? This colossal mistake in which he trades a whole cow for a handful of beans. Uh-oh, that's a really big problem, all right? So it's highly specific to who he is, and we also know that he's going to be faced with a big decision to try and grow up, okay? So it's essentially saying the same thing, it's just highly specific to that fairy tale, all right? There's another tip. We're going to go with the fairy tale trope again, okay? We can take a tip from Pixar, who is the studio that's been, obviously, they've been redefining animation, and they've been lauded for creativity, they've won a bunch of awards for it, and you know what? Every single one of their storylines follows this particular formula. Once upon a time, there was a blank. Every day, blank. One day, blank. Because of that, blank. And because of that, blank. Until finally, boom, there's the end of the story. Okay, so what we're looking at here is causality, right? In this first line here, once upon a time, there was a blank. That lays out what the character is or who the character is, okay? And then this second line, every day, blank, this is the thing that gives you the actual setting of the story, right? And these next 2 or 3 lines establish causality, okay? They give you some tension and some conflict about what's gonna happen, all right? And then of course, for a query letter, I don't know that you would include this last particular line. You wouldn't say until finally blank, because that would give away the end of the story. But you would say something like until finally, Nemo's father, Marlin, has to make a decision about what matters more to him, right? Okay, so in your head, we can do this together, right? Okay, once upon a time, there was a fish named Nemo. Every day he went to school. One day he got lost. Because of that, his father had to go on a hunt for him. Because of that, his father meets Dory, right? Until finally the two are reunited and Marlin ends up blah, 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 so on and so forth. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a girl. Every day she washed the floors of her stepmother's house and they were evil, terrible people, okay? One day she gets invited to a ball. Because of that, fairy godmother arrives, and because of that, so on and so forth, right? So you can practice this with every single fairy tale that you can possibly imagine, and it'll come up crumbs for you, right? You'll be able to practice it, and you'll be able to put it to use in your own story, and then you'll be able to write a great hook, okay? Hang on, I have some notes here that I want to look at. Oh, okay. So one thing to look for, by the way, when you're writing this thing, nobody's looking for a book report in your query letter, all right? We're not looking for you to reveal plot twists or like hammer the themes home too much. This is a story about love and expectations, nobody's looking for that, right? What we're looking for is some sense of balance, right? We're looking for something that will reveal the story to the agent without making them too bored with the plot twist, right? And of course, if you have plot twists that are boring anyways, they probably shouldn't exist in your book. Okay, all right. Okay, so here's where I break it down for you. All right, so like we said, the gray part of this is the premise, right? Once upon a time, there was this is the character, okay, right here, and this is the setting that they live in, right? And then the green part of this, one day, blank, that's the conflict, okay? And then the teal part of this right here, these are like the actual stakes, okay? This is actually what happens in terms of causality and why this all matters, right? And then of course, this weird green shade right here, this last part of it, this is where I reveal the theme of it, okay? Like what exactly is going on in the story? Why does it matter? Okay. All right. Okay. So of course there's always a caveat, right? Like don't use this particular phrasing, this exact phrasing for your query letter. Don't say once upon a time there was a blah, like nobody wants to read that. Okay. This is an exercise that's meant for you to help think about the critical elements of your book, right? The things that have to be involved and that have to be included in the query letter. And of course you should always be looking for ways to mimic the style of your novel or your work in some way so that the agent or the editor who's reading it can get some idea of your unique voice. Okay. So that's why you're not going to use this particular template for in this exact wording format, all right? These are the things that you shouldn't include. Don't include plot twists, like I said. You don't really need to include secondary characters. It's not that important. And of course, never ever use too many words. Again, you're looking for that sweet spot between 350 words and 400 words, okay? All right, so we're gonna take a look at how this works. Okay, so this is the body of that query letter that I showed you before from a novel, not a self-help book, which by the way has a different title than the actual query letter, right? But that's okay because titles change all the time anyways. Do not get too married to your title. Somebody's going to change it. FYI, it's just going to happen. Okay. All right. So here's the who. 26-year-old Marty Wu, slave to self-help books and erstwhile advertising account executive at a magazine for old people, is on the verge of a made in the movies New York advertising deal that allow her to quit her dead-end job and pursue her dream of opening up a couture costume shop. This is wordy. It is lengthy. It is a run-on sentence. You know what? That's exactly the way that Marty talks in her diary. That's exactly the way that this stuff is conveyed in the book. Okay, so a person who doesn't resonate with this is not going to be the right person to represent my book, all right? Because they're not going to like this kind of style of talking, all right? So this first paragraph reveals not only the conflict and the stakes and also the character, but it also reveals a little bit about the particular style of the book, right? And here's the second part of this, right? More conflict, a couple of plot points, probably too many, like I said, right? I think I revealed too much here. I think I put in a bunch of plot twists that were actually kind of unnecessary. And then this last part of this is the big theme question, the so what of it, okay? Every query letter, you have to be able to answer the so what of your story, So what if your character never ends up, getting their dreams or whatever, right? Why does it matter? Why is this agent reading this book? Why does this book need to be published, right? In this case, Marty's dream is slipping away faster than she can avoid thinking about it. She's forced to ask herself just what's been holding her back all this time. And when she finally has the answer, she must make the choice between fulfilling her filial duty and taking real steps towards her own dreams. These are big stakes, okay? This is the kind of stake you're looking for in your own work, all right? Again, for memoir, it's also likely the same, okay? All right, here's another one. Magic Spells and Illusions, Inc. is the story of an ordinary young woman who gets a job at a company that turns out essentially to be Magic Inc. and who finds herself in the middle of a brewing magical war that's really going to complicate her dating life, right? Again, the who and what's at stakes here, okay? Here again is the conflict and a couple plot points. And then finally, the big so what question. Dating in New York was hard enough before she had magical coworkers meddling in her life and a job she can't discuss when her date asks, so what do you do? All right, this is a woman who just wants to be normal. Unfortunately, normal in her life means that she's got to be magical. And you know what? Her actual magic skill is that she can see through magic. This is a problem, okay? So, it's, again, this is the kind of thing where it's not life and death, but because she's querying the right agent and this particular agent loves representing this kind of work, it's going to work for her, okay? All right, that was crazy long, short little stops tour, but I'm going to pause for questions here. All right, that went by really, really fast, guys. I know, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep us all on time here. Okay. Woo, that went by really fast. All right, questions?
Is this the Q&A?
Yes. Okay, Pamela, your question was, remind me again, please.
Bona fides if you don't have a whole lot to put in there relative to, your professional type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So with regards to your bona fides, do what you can do, right? You might say, I know you're studying for your MFA, right? So you might say that you're an MFA student, right? But you might also say that you've published in this place or that place. Okay. The thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't say I have studied with X, Y, and Z author, right? Like that's not a thing that people resonate with, but it's okay for you to say, this is your first book. It's also okay for you to lean on your lived experience, right? Your particular memoir is very personal to you, right? Yeah. And that's where I was talking about before, like in my bona fides for pinups, I should have said something about my experience in the outside world of adventure racing, right? And for you, you might say you've lived with Parkinson's for, a certain amount of time, right? You've been through the caretaking route, all this stuff. Like that's really, really important. So lived experience is a very big deal for memoirists, okay? All right, anybody else?
Thank you.
Ishan.
Yes.
Now this is, I know probably it's a similar thing on the bona fides.
Uh-huh.
I have a couple pieces of fiction, but I have a lot more poetry. Should we include poetry for submitting for fiction or fiction for submitting for poetry? Things like that.
I would, because they are publication credits, and they will all go towards building your platform.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, great. Any other questions? I know we're up against time here. So yes.
Is it possible?
Yeah, Elizabeth. Sorry, say it again. I can't give you the PowerPoint. I'm sorry, it's IP. Okay. Yeah. So, but you'll be able to. You'll have access to this recording. So.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Cool. That either means that I blew all of your brains out with talking really, really fast, or
Thank you.
Our poor ASL interpreters are working overtime. You've got sweat rings everywhere.
Okay.
All right. Terrific.
Great. Ishan, thank you so much. We're gonna put this up. It's been recorded. Up next is Tiana's Carson. We'll get 4 or 5 poems in an hour and a half, and that's great. I hope to see you all there.
Yeah, terrific. I put my address in the chat box, so if you all have questions for me, please feel free to jot down questions and let me know if you have questions. All right.
Thank you so much, Ishan.
Bye, everybody. See you.